Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. We have a great show. We're not going to really talk about real estate. Today we're going to talk about like building a brand, getting on stages, converting sales, being aggressive in marketing and networking. I think this is kind of the topic. I think this is the most impactful thing you need to do, whoever's watching this in the future once it's edited, is to get out there and start making it happen. This gentleman who's going to be talking today, he's former Marine, I believe, in the Marine Corps. He then got into the sales world, was in sales, and then he stumbled into and discovered his company, which is Success Champion Networking.
Yep.
And he does different summits. He does a lot of cool stuff, and he's building a tribe of networking groups, it looks like, throughout the United States. So this is going to be a great topic because I think we're going to dive deep into kind of like what it really takes to be successful, the grit, and just to actually take action and do it. And I think I was watching some of your previous interviews and I was getting a feel of what you're about. And I kind of got some energy and it didn't come easy for you, but finally you kind of put the work in and you figured it out and you realized that, hey, I have a message to help, to talk to people about, and started a podcast that really kind of grew your name and your brand, and now you're just launching everywhere and have your summits you do. So please welcome Donnie Boivin. Almost sounds like a country western singer. I was thinking that. Welcome.
We didn't say bovine, so I'm I didn't hit cow status, so we're good there. We're good there.
There
dude.
You go.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's gonna be fun. I've already enjoyed our little chat before we started doing this, so I think we're gonna have fun.
So let's just talk about Success Champions. Like, just tell me like how this formulated and what you do with these. Well, also the Badass Summit. Just kind of talk about your model and like how you're helping entrepreneurs out there.
Well, I didn't know you could be an entrepreneur until you were 40, right? So I launched my companies at 40 years old, and up until that point, I honestly, was a straight commission sales guy. Sales is all I knew, but I didn't understand that my entire life, somebody always told me what to do. And now that I'm out as a business owner, there was nobody telling me what to do. And so I was all over the place. So my first year in business, almost lost my farm. My wife's car got repossessed. She had to cash in her 401k to save everything. And had I not found podcasting, I'm not sure I would have been able to be here, even talking to you, because it just taught me a lot about business. But the most fascinating thing that happened along my journey is I started talking about out public all the things that I was screwing up and figuring out in business, and everything that I was fucking doing wrong, and just bashing my head against the wall trying to build a business. And as I did this, people started asking me questions, which I always thought was really funny. I'm like, don't ask me questions. I'm literally telling you, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But as they kept asking questions, things started growing. So we shifted the entire point and purpose of the companies to help as many businesses get to freedom through building a business. Because most people, as you're going through building a business, as it's going through the dark times, you make yourself a freaking island, and you don't want anybody to know how bad it is. So we just learned that by me sharing the shit show side of business, that more people lean into, because not only do I tell you everything that I screwed up, I also teach you the things I learned along the way. So we launched Success Champion Networking to change how the world networks, bring people together, focused on business growth through a mastermind peer strategy that just happens to have a networking problem. We launched the Champions Table Masterminds to help businesses actually scale and get to the level that we're at with all three companies. And then we launched the Badass Business Summits for a place for business owners to fly in and work on their business at the summit. But everything comes back to, how do we get people to not hold themselves up wherever their office is, which is for most people sitting in their homes right now, and actually find an environment where they can actually grow their businesses.
So take me back to when you almost went belly up and your wife had to cash in the 401k to salvage that. You were probably at one of your lowest points, I imagine, in your life. So how did talk to me about how you picked yourself up, your kind of thought process there, and then how you discovered podcasting?
Yep. So the exact morning, my wife was asleep in her bed, and I'd walk down to wake up the farm. We have a full working farm, goats, chickens, a whole nine yards. And Went out the back door and her Jeep was literally missing. So I called the police and said, "Hey, I think my wife's Jeep's been stolen." And they replied, "No, sir, it's been repossessed," which meant I knew I was going to have to go up and tell my wife the rest of the story, which is I just got the first letter that said they may foreclose on the farm. So that Monday, she had to go cash in her 401k to save everything. But that night, I remember going up to my bathroom and looking myself in the mirror. And I tried to say the words "I love you" in the mirror, and it just felt too freaking weird. So I changed it and said, "I'm proud of you." And instantly I said, "No, you're not. You're not doing the things you need to be doing. You're not even holding up your end of the bargain as a dude trying to be a married guy, right? You're not, out selling and doing the things." So I started doing that every night, going to the mirror and just saying, "I'm proud of you." And anytime something would pop up that was like, "No, you're not doing X," that became the thing that I worked on next. That was either the thing I had to go fix or figure out. And I kept doing this and kept doing this. And that helped me start turning the business. Well, a buddy of mine threw me a freaking favor, and he had an event coming up with about 400 people in the room. And he said, "Hey, dude, I need you to come speak at my event." And I said, "Man, I'm still under my non-compete. My previous employment, I was a sales trainer and I was under an international non-compete, and I couldn't talk about sales, business development, or sales training anywhere in the world." So I'm telling him, like, "Dude, I can't come to your summit and talk about sales." He goes, "No, no, I just want you to tell people the journey. I want you to tell people your sales story." I'm like, "Nah, I can do that." So I showed up, had fun, had a blast on stage. After that event, a guy walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, I love your energy. I love your story. Would you come tell it on my podcast?" And I said, "What the hell is a podcast?" And this was April of 2018. And so he explained that, it's like a talk radio where you come in and you share stories back and forth. So I went on a show. After the show aired, freaking a couple people reached out and became clients of mine. And I went, "Holy shit, you can go guest on podcast and people are going to hear your name and message." So that started my journey down to podcasting. So I launched my first podcast in May of 2018. And 5 months later, it was sitting as number 22 in the world. But I went full beast mode from a sales process to build that damn audience. But and I tell everybody, podcasting saved my business because it was teaching me processes. It was teaching me systems. It was teaching me outsourcing and how to hire and bring on teams, because I was getting the luxury of interviewing some of the biggest names in the world, and I couldn't have a shit show of a process. So it was a wild ride to get there.
So I think that's powerful because people out there or here that are going to watch this in the future or listen to it on audio, like it sometimes takes like where you're kind of down and out and you just snap and but it's powerful that you had to tell yourself in the mirror these things, right? Because over time, that repetition it actually works. And all these things that I hear, like I've heard from successful people, like write your goals down, like journal, and like I never wanted to do it, but like, listen, if somebody's telling you something and they're successful, you should really take note of that, right? And kind of what you're saying reminds me of that lady, Mel Robbins, because she does a lot of that kind of stuff where she would, she would tell herself things so it would get her into a positive state, right? Because sometimes when you're feeling that low, a lot of people never pick themselves up, right? And your life could have went the other way. Like first of all, financial stress is like probably the leading cause of divorce.
Yep.
Right. So you have to be strong. I mean, anybody that's listening to this right now, I think the message here is like, listen, like wherever you're at, be strong, have that grit, and keep yourself positive. And even if it sounds vague in the beginning, because it sounded like it was hard for you in the beginning.
Extremely.
And then it's like, now, do you still do this kind of
Oh yeah. It's still hard in times because I could tell you that at one point when the businesses turned and started doing a lot better, when we were starting to make money, I went to the mirror and said, "I'm proud of you." And instantly the voice popped in my head and said, "No, you're not. You're not being good to your wife." And what I found is I'd poured so much time and energy into the companies that I wasn't spending time with her. So now I had to ask myself, okay, cool. How do I put all the time and energy and effort into this? And how do I bring my wife into it? What I found is I wasn't even talking about my business to my wife. So now, and I don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's a freaking myth. And the only people who want work-life balance are people who hate what they do. so now I've learned, and my wife doesn't really care about the companies and the things we do. She loves that we're being so successful in the things that we can do with it. But she's one of my biggest sounding boards. So if I got a big decision or I've got, something that's coming up, I can bounce ideas off hers, and she's like my little Jiminy Cricket that keeps me on the straight and narrow, because she's got such a black and white version of follow the rules, do the right thing type thing. So she's awesome to bounce things off of. So that's been fantastic. And I would also put in there, to go back just a little bit, of the people that are going through it. I think people have to get to one or two places in their life. If you're actually trying to go for it, you've either got to decide to take the hits by doing the hard things. And the hard things are all those things you don't want to do that'll actually grow your business. And early on, that's maybe the cold reach outs or the cold calls or the walk-ins, or maybe it's putting out the content, right? All those hard things that it takes time to get used to doing and get good at. Or you got to screw up so bad that you hit rock bottom and have no choice but to fight. Because otherwise you're going to live a very mundane gray man style of life if you're not going for it. So you either screwed up so bad that you start fighting, or you get in a game. Otherwise, you're going to stay mediocre the rest of your damn life.
That resonates with me, because I always have that conversation with myself. I think when you become a middle-aged man, I'm 45. You start reflecting. Like, I always came from the standard middle-class family. Like, life was, I would say, pretty easy for me. I didn't have many struggles other than the struggles within. My struggles today are that most of my peers are very successful, which is a blessing. But also you start looking over your shoulder going, okay, well, how come this guy's able to do all this stuff? And I feel like, so I'm teaching myself, hey, don't look at other people. You have your own journey. You have your own, right? All these things.
Ooh, I want to challenge that a little bit. I want you to look at those people, because here's a fascinating way to look at it. This is what helped me, so maybe it'll help you. But what I started doing, instead of looking at those guys and going, how the hell did they do, or why am I not there, or anything like that, I started going, well, how did they do it? What specifically did they do? And I start dissecting their plan. And what I found is, the more I come at it from that, now I'm like, ooh, I can do that. I'm going to catch this motherfucker. Right? Kind of a hold my beer and watch this moment, because if you can understand the specifics of how they did it and come at it from that angle, now it's just a matter of acquiring those skill sets to go after it. So try. It's been fun for me to look at it that way.
No, that is great. And I think with social media too, it's either a blessing or a curse. There's a lot of people that are just scrolling through Instagram and going, oh, this person's got such a perfect life. And most of that shit
is fake.
Right? Like, it ain't, because you get to, the funny thing is, I just went to a mastermind group that I'm a part of, and there's like 900 entrepreneurs in this group, and they're all successful. And I hadn't seen my buddy in a couple of years, and he's like somebody you would just say, oh, he's making millions of dollars every year. He's like, but everybody has their own struggles. All these entrepreneurs that they're making a couple $1,000,000 a year, that everybody's saying, oh, these guys are making $3, $4, $5 million a year. They're golden. These guys all have the same problems that you do, right? Yep. And that's the funny thing we have to realize. So let's talk about your different mastermind groups in context to like the framework of how you're helping entrepreneurs that come to these like networking mastermind events. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll come right to that. So I got a group of CEOs that I meet with on a monthly basis, and we're all just hand selected. There's 8 of us. We get together once a month, and all we do is talk business. And I did that right before I jumped on this call. That was my call prior to this. And to your point, they're all running 7-figure businesses, doing really, really cool things. And every one of us on that call was like, fuck, man, I'm in one of those down cycles. And it was like, and which allowed us all then to go, cool. Well, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Right? You can't just sit here, type of thing. So I just want other people to hear it, that, it's real. We're some days you're like, God, I'm so glad I started a business. Other days you're like, what the hell am I doing this for? It's just part of the game. So, but the masterminds came about, they evolved from our networking groups. And what we found is, in the groups, the networking groups, we could bring people together to kind of form these kind of peer mastermind groups. So they get together on a weekly basis. They work on a lot of different business angles, and then they work to make introductions. I'm just not a big referral guy. I like introductions. Let me just get two good people together, let them go figure out their synergy, and good things happen. Broke people came up with the idea that you should go network to get referrals. It's because they didn't know how to go create their own business, right? So it became this desperation game. People don't understand that connection's all you freaking need, and you can build a monster business. And so, but out of those networking groups, people started coming to us, man, we like the business growth. We like the business growth, but we want to scale the damn business. How do we work on how to scale? And for the listeners, the difference between scaling and growth is like natural incremental growth over time. Scaling is when you can go from like $1 million or $10 million company to $100 million company, but you have no change in infrastructure or staff, right? You just finally hit the hockey stick and take off. So most people are just growing their business. They're not actually scaling. So what we do in our masterminds is we break down the systems and processes for people to actually be able to scale. Because most of us didn't meet the CEOs of the companies we worked for. We didn't see the business structure and the systems and the processes. So unfortunately, a lot of people just create a shitty job for themselves and not actually build a company. So we work on getting them to figure out, okay, what kind of business do they want? Do they want to just be the solopreneur that's making enough money that they can enjoy the life and live the life they live? Or do they actually want to build a company that has employees and the like? And it's a big distinction. And I think most people truly just want the solopreneur gig versus actually building a company, because they left corporate America because they didn't want all that structure and everything else. So once they understand that kind of thing, they can wrap their head around what they build. And then so from there, we start bringing together similar sized businesses. So we won't put, a $500,000 company right up against a $5 million company. So we put similar sized businesses in these groups, and we work through a monthly strategy on how to actually scale the business.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's so important. So you're getting peers that are in the trenches, together, whether they're $1 million revenue company or 10 million. They identify with their peers in that group, and they're all probably pretty much dealing with the same struggles.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the industry. They're all dealing with the same stuff.
And then they're able to kind of, from a peer-to-peer kind of platform, they can work through issues together as a team.
Yeah. And
I'm sure during these, it's very impactful that people can come together who are, they're probably all driven, successful type of people, right? They're not going to be in the room if they're not.
Or if they somehow slip through the cracks, they won't last long.
Yeah. And then they work through, and then do these groups usually stay together and grow? Like,
So our longest running group is 3 years right now. And, they're taking vacations and things together. I saw, God, who was it? It was one of the big influencers, and I wish I could remember their name to give them the credit, but they were on stage with a couple other influencers, and watching them talk was kind of funny. They're like, people look at us now and they, look at us at what we've done and what we've created. What they don't know is this group on stage has been together for 15 years, busting our asses, getting after it to get to this level. So what you see is a collection of people that have been doing this together for years. And I think there's a lot of power in that, because, if you don't have some sort of outlet with other people that are going as hard as you are, then it can get really lonely really damn quick. Because truthfully, being a CEO of a company can be a very lonely place if you don't have a group of people to get around to talk through and think through things. I think CEOs often, we think we're supposed to have all the answers and be able to make all the calls and know the risks to take, and that can get heavy at times.
So you have a bunch of these small kind of micro tribes, masterminds, and you stay in each of these as the facilitator.
Yeah, and so me and my COO Kevin Snow do. We go in, and both of us have a couple that we run ourselves. We have a couple that are combined that him and I tackle. He's really strong on the operational side of things and the structure and procedures. I'm more strong on the sales, marketing, brand side of the company. So it's a nice 1-2 punch to bring us in.
what are the next steps? Like I was trying to see that you're building like networking chapters, almost like BNIs, but without the BS of BNI, a real networking
Yeah,
group.
BNI has its place. I think BNI is where people go learn how to network that they've never been introduced to it. I think if you sell B2C, BNI is a really good place to go. And I think most businesses just eventually grow beyond what BNI's capacity is. And that's where we start picking them up by bringing in more. So the biggest difference between like an organization like BNI and ours is we're more focused on business growth, not referrals. So we do weekly meetings. There's still category specific type meetings, but during those meetings, we run 5 different styles. So there's a mastermind, there's a round table, there's different meeting formats to allow people the best chance to grow their business. So we've got approved trainers. We got like 19 trainers that go around and teach at all the different groups. And we just got some really highly skilled individuals. So, where most networking is focused on how can we get referrals and you get a bunch of broke people sitting around trying to sell each other, we tend to get the people in that are trying to get after it, and we focus a lot in there on teaching them how to sell, because let's be honest, most people who find networking found it because they couldn't sell. So all of a sudden networking becomes this thing of, oh my God, other people can grow my business for me. So we constantly are trying to disrupt the industry by saying, look, networking, if you're only relying on networking to build your business, you're going to lose, right? You've got to be able to go sell. You've got to be able to go drum up your own business and then bring that back to your organization, bring that back to your groups. And if you get a bunch of people that are focused on growing their business and can go out, get their business and bring it back, man, some good shit happens and some amazing doors get opened. So that's what's allowed us to scale it so quickly.
I actually, before I got married at 42, so it's later in life. But I would always be going to different events because I always like to be around people that were driven. I felt like I could feed off the energy.
Right.
So it's so powerful for people to do this kind of things. Like, first of all, you got to get in the right room because there's a lot of rooms that aren't the right places for you to be. But if you can get around
some of your listeners, but if you walk into a room and there's a multi-level marketing person in there, walk out. You're in the wrong damn room. I mean, I don't know, I'm going to piss off some people saying that, but it's the truth because, people that are building the big businesses don't want to hang out with the people that are chasing the latest shiny object out there.
People don't want to be sold. They want to be engaged, right?
Yes.
Like there's a difference. Like when I have conversations with people, it's like my mind's wondering how I can help them, how, like kind of I'm not trying to necessarily sell anybody. I'm just giving some of my wisdom. I think it's like the way I feel it works the best is like I go into a room and we just talk and it's like very relaxed conversation. And then some of my wisdom just, I could give them some wisdom. And before you know it, I just, I just gave them a class, and they gave me a class on something, and like it opened my different perspective. And when you have people that are high level business people, somebody's like, yeah, you should be doing this. This is what we're doing for my business, right? Versus like, somebody had a booked a call with me that's in one of my mastermind groups, and he was just telling me that he got laid off from a high tech job. He's getting paid very well. And he like had no idea what he wanted to do. And then he's like, yeah, I got 26 houses and I specialize in Section 8 rental properties. And I'm like, well, he's like, I'm like, here, this is what you should do. Have you thought about like creating some content around like how to buy and manage Section 8 properties? And so then I'm like, here, go check this domain name, section8mastery.com. And like gave him a whole business plan. And I'm interested to go back in a few months and see if he actually took action. I don't know if he will or not. But it's like, he was like kind of blown away and I felt good. Like I feel good sharing my knowledge because I spent a lot of time building my skill sets. I didn't go to college, but I've taken a lot of classes on a lot of different things. I've have different experiences. We all get all these different experiences in our life. Right. And then I think it's a component too, is like to understand, like you are incredible, right? Like you have to understand like, hey, all this skill I have in me. And it took me a long time. Like my friends would start saying, man, I'm finally owning it that I have a skill.
Mm.
but it took me a long time to like, and that was kind of like limiting beliefs and like, just a normal kind of thing. We all have these limiting beliefs. And I never said, well, yeah, I am. And then I helped my friend and he bought all these Airbnb properties. And now I'm looking at him like, man, he just showed me gross $70,000 last month. He doesn't have to work anymore. He's 40 years old. And I helped him do a lot of it. And it's like, I wasn't giving myself credit for as much as I shared people. And I think this is, what these groups can do, right? Like you can
Yep.
learn like, hey, like you can take your business to the next level. And even people that are watching this, just like I always preach to people, hey, start a podcast, share your knowledge with people. And also like, look, I get to network with you. I never would have known you, right? Now I'm
Right.
getting some knowledge from you. And I'm like, it's opening to my mind, like, cause I am, I have like a real estate investor club, but like now I'm thinking, how do I grow it? Right. How do I, and I'm getting little nuggets from you. And so that's the power of podcasting too, is that you're going to meet amazing people.
Well, and
And
I want to tell people on that, because I 100% agree with you. I think podcasting is the greatest networking platform on the planet. But don't go into podcasting to get downloads. Don't go into podcasting to worry about the numbers. Get into podcasting to network, if more people would wrap their head around it, because just like you said, we're sitting here having a conversation, didn't know each other prior to this, right? Now I'm pretty confident that we could shoot each other a message on LinkedIn or whatever else and go, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Who do I need to meet? And be able to make some cool things happen. And it opens up a plethora of opportunities. And, what people don't understand is they have to become the person everybody already thinks they are. Like even with you and your story, you're like, you were doing all these cool things, but didn't give yourself enough credit. I guarantee all those people that were taking advice from you were already looking at you going, dude, this guy's got to figure it out. Right. And it's a hard thing to be able to step back and see yourself through somebody else's eyes. And when you can, start doing that and then start going, okay, and you start learning to internally validate yourself and go, you know what? I am a good dude. I have got a few things figured. I got a long fucking way to go, but I have figured some things out. And you just start teaching what you figured out. People are going to lean in. Like the guy at the Section 8, you're so spot on about that, man. I mean, and I don't know him. I don't mean no offense to him, but he's dumb not to do that, because it's such a niche down market that there's people that are trying to figure that out. And what a cool way to find a niche inside of a niche that probably not a lot of people are in there talking about. When you can give that kind of knowledge to people, you want to be around the people that are like, dude, that's my thing. I'm going to use that and run with it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like amazing. And then also like when I go to networking events too, I'm intentional about it, right? Like
Of course.
I do a show in about a half hour. I do a live show with a guy named Vinny Chopra, and I met him 8 years ago at an event, and I just liked him. He's a 70-year-old Indian dude, and he's just like, not somebody you'd imagine that we became really good friends, and just met him at an event and we hit it off. I didn't know who he was. I said, hey, I'd like to buy you a sandwich during the break. And then ever since, now we do a show together. We invest in deals together. And, this is a guy that's buying $60 million apartment buildings.
Right.
So it's so important to get out there. And
you're listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, this is Beau, host of the Investor Financing Podcast. I appreciate you checking out our channel. On this podcast, we talk about real estate, investing, financing, business lending, and acquiring and expanding your business. I'm sure you will find some videos here that will help you build your business empire. There's a lot to see. Take your time and make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks again. Let's talk about you've written a couple books. What is your goal now? Like, where do you want your business to go?
So, at the end of the day, we set out to literally change how the world networks. And, networking hasn't evolved since the 1980s. And, people are used to a BNI style of meeting. And once again, there's nothing wrong with it. And COVID gave us an opportunity to come in and disrupt the model of networking by bringing some cool things together. So my biggest ambition is I want to how I built this Guy Raz episode of SCN versus BNI, just so we disrupt the marketplace so much that we take over. We'll never match them as far as number of members because we're not looking for heartbeats. We are very selective about who can come into the chapters, and that's helped us really grow the pace we've grown. So ultimately, outside of the business, we want to open up a huge ranch that just allows for rescued and, animals that need to be helped, taken care of. We already do a lot of it now on our farm, but we know we want to go a hell of a lot bigger with it. So everything comes back to if I can just use the things that I continue to figure out and screw up, and I'm not learning anything new. I'm just learning the path that others have gone before me and done. I'm just learning it by being a bull in a china shop and screwing it up, getting punched in the face, trying new things, going, okay, that punch sucked. How do I fix it? How do I do it better? Building a network of just some pure badasses that, can give me the information I need to go to the next level. And I think, to your point about the strategy of networking, I think there's got to be a lot of humbleness in it. I think a lot of us that are trying to do things, our ego can get in the way in sometimes, but sometimes you just need to be able to walk in a room, recognize who's in the room, have an ego enough to go up and say hi, and be humble enough to actually learn from them. And so the intentionality behind it all is amazing. I think most people go to networking events and they turn it into a social club. If I find myself at an after hours, at a breakfast meeting, or, even a conference, every moment has a set of intention. So, if it's an after hours, I'm going to set 2 appointments and get the hell out of the room, because anything beyond that, and I'm going to end up drinking too damn much and get myself in trouble. At a conference, it's the same thing. I'm going to look very specifically, okay, who's the speaker on stages? Who do I think will be in those rooms? What do I need to learn? And then I'm going to go into those rooms and make sure I'm sitting next to the people that I need to meet and engage and interact with. And it's going to have a point. And you're never going to see me with a handout of, hey, what can you do for me? It's always, what favor can I give them? What leverage can I give? By what door can I open for them? I mean, look at you simply giving a sandwich for lunch. It's a simple things like that to just go so damn far. And the foundation of who I've been as a person allowed me to get here.
Yeah, I love that. I was at a conference like 5 months ago here in Las Vegas, and one of my banker friends said, "Oh, she told these other guys you got to meet Beau." And anyways, I ended up meeting these guys, and we had a good conversation, and then we followed up, and like, they're from New York. We started meeting once a week and kind of walking through how we could work together. And then they were on business trip in LA. They said, "Hey, we can drive to Vegas and meet you so we can spend a day together." And we met, and then I just circled back with them. And so we've been working on this whole plan, and then I did a podcast, and I edited it for the guy, and because I gave him some layup questions to like just show him how to market his business.
Nice.
And so it comes to find out now I'm going to help them with their business, and I get paid, some royalty fees ongoing for the life of these relationships that I've created. And then we're starting another company together, actually, where I'm going to own 30%. There's a couple partners involved. And it all came from just meeting these people,
Awesome. Awesome.
It's just amazing. And I was giving a lot. Like, I took the time to edit and make a cool, video. And then I just met with them last week, and I paid for like a intro on the podcast. And we're actually starting a podcast together for this niche. And it's just like, it could have not gone anywhere and it would have been okay. Right. And I've done a lot, and I put a lot of effort into it, and that's fine. But I just think like there's so many people out there that if you get in the right room and have an open mind and get these relationships are key. And that's what I really think that, can really help you grow your business. Because the one guy was showing me how he does his like internal stuff with his spreadsheets and stuff. And I'm not a spreadsheet guy. And what this guy can do is amazing. Like, he's a software engineer. And I'm like, man, this is so cool. And he's just like, show me all he can do. And I'm like, that's perfect. I can't do that stuff. We make a great team, because that's what I need. on this side. And I think that's what you're facilitating with your groups.
Yeah,
Right?
for
You're
sure.
facilitating.
A funny story right along the same line is I went on a podcast called Be a Tactical Leader, and the host is the guy by the name of Zach Knight. And he's an Army veteran, Marine Corps veteran. And, we had a lot of fun. We really hit it off on a podcast. We heard about the Badass Business Summit. And as soon as we're done recording, he instantly bought 2 VIP tickets to the summit. And he flew out, and I'm like, dude, there's something here to this guy. I don't know much about him, but as I started knowing, this dude's like super connected in Atlanta, like knows everybody's is private boards, huge companies, huge private clubs and the like. So he flies out to the summit. Well, the VIPs at the summit, they're allowed to submit a video if they're a VIP, a little 2-minute clip of them speaking. And we pick 6 of them to go on stage to do a 6-minute speech. And then the crowd votes on who gets to come back next year and be, one of the spots on stage. And, now I was understanding how connected, Zach was and the likes. Well, him and his girlfriend came out there, and his girlfriend also had a VIP, and she was one of the ones up on stage. Well, Zach dominated the stage, right? The whole crowd voted for him. And I know I didn't need to do much to have Zach come back next year and speak, but I wanted to do a solid favor for Zach. So we brought 2 people back, and we gave his girlfriend the stage as well. So him and Tay will both be speaking at the summit this year. Because of that, Zach turned around and said, hey, can you be in Atlanta at the end of the year? I've got some events at. So we worked it out. I flew to Atlanta for 4 days. I ran one of his masterminds. I keynoted a 400-room veteran freaking thing at the History Museum in Atlanta. I did a huge radio show event for him one night. And we're still collaborating and doing things. I'm helping him do his big summit that he's doing in Atlanta in July. And it all became from sitting on a podcast, getting to know somebody that I was just guesting on their show. And it's just the power of what can happen when you show up, man. I mean, if you don't want to start your own show, go start guesting on shows and use it as a network leverage to go get into these really cool conversations. It's just amazing where opportunities will pop up if you just put yourself in the right damn place.
I love that. That's so true. It's so true. Like, and some people just won't ever, they just don't do it. And I don't, and they're like stuck, and I don't know. And it blows my mind. It was funny. I was like, I think a while back, I was like, I think I need a coach. I never had a business, a performance coach. And I interviewed my friend Derek on my podcast. And I was like, after we went off air, I said, I really want a coach. And he said, oh, I got to introduce you to Phil. And he had met Phil. And anyways, Phil became my coach. And for anybody out there that doesn't have any coaching or any mastermind groups you're a part of, if you're not getting coached or in mastermind groups, you're absolutely foolish in my mind. I was a little bit kind of taken back because, I mean, coaching's not cheap. It's this, it adds up when you're meeting once a week for an hour with your coach, but the ROI is just unbelievable. But my friend Eric knew I was getting coached, and he's like, man, I want to get coached. So I'm like, all right, let me talk to Phil. I'll see if he's got room to. And of course I did an intro, and like Eric never responded to Phil because he has a problem with procrastination and he like overthinks things, and it's not. And he's a highly successful dude. I mean, this guy was a pro MMA fighter. He's very successful in business. And he's like, yeah, that's part of my problem is I procrastinate. And I just it just blows my mind. I'm like, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. It's like you got to get yourself in the room. He's always. And then I told him by accident, my Fathom, recorded my session with Phil, and Phil had said some really good things about me. And I went back, and I was looking. I thought it was just being transcribed, but the video was being recorded. And I went back and I listened to and watched Phil what he said about me, and I was like, I felt it, like it was like strong. And he meant it. He meant it. But it's just like, I was telling Eric how I got recorded. He's like, oh, will you send it to me? He wanted to see and I asked Phil, I said, would you care if my friend saw it? And he didn't care. He said, yeah, if he wants to, if you want to share it with him, he You can, but it's funny because Eric's is always like, he's just, he has success, but he's missing that element and he's scared to kind of plunge in. Somebody like him needs to be in your room with a group of, successful peers, because it'll get him to because this guy operates he has no body fat. I mean, he's a machine. Like anything he does, he's good at, but he's lacking some of that stuff in the mind that needs to be worked on. So all these people need to get in the rooms.
Oh, thanks, Jude. I appreciate it. Yeah. I want to speak to two things you said. One, I think it takes the strongest man in the world to be coached, because it's always ego, not procrastination. And I want to speak to procrastination as a whole, but if your ego won't allow you to sit across from somebody and absorb or take advice, you're chicken shit. Because that was my story for a lot of years. I told people I'm uncoachable. No. I didn't want to hear the things that somebody else was going to say to me, because I knew those things were going to fucking hurt, because I knew there was a lot of shit that I just didn't know in business. And it took me getting a fractional COO to come in my company and kind of look at me going, dude, you've got a lot of money coming in, but what the fuck are you doing? Because the businesses were all over the place. And so, but dude, if you're unwilling to get coached, then at some point you're going to find yourself potentially sitting on a lot of money and fucking miserable as fuck, because you got no outlet. And so the outlet becomes the alcohol, it becomes whatever, sex or anything. And when you're replacing, life with some sort of substance or other actions that aren't healthy for you, it's going to catch up. The second thing I wanted to talk to is the idea of procrastination. Procrastination it's like perfectionism. It's just a fear, and you don't want the outcome, or you don't want the feeling of uncomfort or difficulty to pop in your life. So you start procrastinating, or you start saying, well, it's got to be perfect before I do it. The best people in the world know how to step into that difficult, because it's getting on the other side of that difficult. And I want to say difficult more than uncomfort, because I think people don't embrace the word uncomfortable, but it's because it's difficult. It doesn't come easy. People avoid it like hell. And it's those that get in and do the things that start off being difficult and make those things easy for them, because they learn the strategies, they learn the process. Like I heard Alex Hermosi on his podcast say he's done 4,000 sales calls. Dude, I've sold for 25 years and I'm nowhere even close to that number. And he said right after, he goes, dude, 4,000 sales calls, there's not a question you can ask me or a statement you can say to me in a sales conversation that I haven't heard hundreds of times. And I thought, God, if I had done 4,000 sales calls, badass I'd really be at sales. Now, in his defense, he sat in a gym and people came into him, and I don't want to take anything away from the process, but he took something that people struggle with every day and just made it its bitch, because he did it so many times. And that's why people put off procrastination. Like your MMA buddy, dude, if he's so good at working out and he's done that, it's not a difficult thing to work out, because it comes natural to him. He already enjoys it. If he really wants to progress and grow at life, he needs to go do the difficult things, the things that make him uncomfortable, things that are actually hard. That's when he's going to really find beast mode. Right. Because he's only halfway pulling the trigger by being good in the areas that are just easy for him.
That's dead on. Just like me. Like I always tell people, like, it's easy. I get up, I go to the gym. I just made that a commitment. Now I gained a lot of weight because I'm not good with the food, right? Like food's 80% of the whole thing. And like, I can outwork most people in the gym. I would say, like, if you saw me working out, you're like, dude, this guy's a savage. He works out really hard. But like as I got older, I struggled, like, because I love to eat, right? It's almost an addiction, right? I love food. I'm a foodie. And like, you gotta just like, that's the tough part for me, right? Like, so like, what do you do? Like we all have our fixes and all this stuff too.
Sure.
Right? Like it's never easy, but you have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. And that's where the growth happens, is what I heard from you, right? Like
it's it. It's because like most people struggle with selling, right? Nobody likes the prospecting side of selling. Nobody wants to go through all that stuff. But, how I got myself good at selling is I started training sales. And so the way I started training sales is I started making live dial cold calls where people could hear both sides of the conversation. That scared the shit out of me so bad to stand in front of people and do live cold calls. But in doing that, I got so damn good at them that they became really, really, really easy. So for most people, if they will look for where in their life they are struggling and then look specifically at it and go, okay, how do I get myself into a position where I have no choice but to do the things? So like for me in that instance, all I said is, guys, on this date at this time, show up. I'm going to do live cold calls. And I was expecting 1 or 2 people, and like 40 people filled the fucking room because they wanted to watch the monkey make the cold calls. And I was like, oh, crap. Right now, I can't completely make an ass of myself, which I did. But at the end, I set an appointment. And, but it's those type of things, those type of moments that you'll put yourself in. So for like you and the eating thing, I totally get. I'm a foodie myself. I had a buddy, just to give you what he did. So he gave me the concept of traps. And what a trap is something you put out in place that you can get caught. But if you get caught, you get caught in a very, very, very open and seen situation. So what he did is his sales was sucking. And he said, all right, I'm going to make this work. So his daughter was like 11 years old. He walked up to his daughter and said, if I make a sale every week this year, I will take you to Disney World at the end of the year. So every Friday, his daughter would look at him and go, Daddy, did you make a sale? And go, yep. Well, about 6 weeks in, he didn't make the sale that week. So about 2:00 in the afternoon, daughter looks at him and goes, Dad, did you make the sale? And he goes, honey, I didn't. And she like balls, loses her fucking mind, right? And he goes, oh my God. He said, I jumped on the phone and I hammered it out and I closed 2 deals before 6:00 that evening. And he goes, for the rest of the year, I closed 2 deals a week because I was never going to see her make that face again. So what I tell most people is figure out what's that consequence that's more scary than not doing the thing you need to do. Like my farm is very, very private to me. And, I don't bring people out here. We don't bring the cameras on there or anything like that. So oftentimes my trap, if there's something I need to do in the business, is all right, I got to do this, or I'm going live from the farm with a full film crew and creating a show completely about my farm. And I so don't want to do that it's enough motivation and drive to usually get me to do the things I want. It's a hell of a trap for me, but it works best when you tell the world about it. So I'll often go to LinkedIn, Facebook. Those are my 2 biggest platforms. And I'll put it out there. Hey, I'm going to do X for the next 30 days. If I don't, I'm doing this. And now you'll get people that will send you DMs and messages and the likes. Like, hey, how's it going? You doing this? Where you at? I really want to see that show from the farm. And now you got this wicked accountability of a bunch of people on you. So put yourself out there in those unique trap situations and some cool things happen.
Yeah, that's so true. It kind of made me think of Andy Frisella's 75 Hard Challenge.
75 Hard's cool, yeah.
They make you take pictures every day. That action was really good. I actually think that's like a great program because you have to take a selfie every day and like you do all these things, but like then you're capturing it and it's like, it just becomes like, oh, I have to do it. I have to do it. It's like, yep. And then you can easily do 75 Hard. It's not that hard, but you gotta just start, right?
We came up with Champions 90, and what Champions 90 is and people have compared it to 75 Hard. What made me think of it, but you're committing to 90 days of business development activities. So what it is every day you go work out for 45 minutes and you listen to a business or growth oriented podcast. I'm just huge on the podcast game. You do 30 minutes of cold outreach. You do 30 minutes of what we call hand raising techniques, is where you're either on stages, on post, putting out social content, engaging on social content, anywhere you can put out original thought and people can raise their hand and say, I'm interested in it. And you write 200 words every day. And what we found is when we first started to put it together, is I was telling my wife that I was doing that. And I started off and it was originally going to be 15 minutes of cold outreach. And she goes, that's not very much. So we kicked it up to 30. And I said, babe, but even at 15 minutes, that's 15 minutes more a day than most people are actually freaking doing. So, but if people go and you can go to champions90.com and check it out. But if you just go to LinkedIn, you type in hashtag champions90, go watch all the comments and the people talking about going through it and their takeaways. And so what most people do is they do the 45-minute workout, they do the podcast at the same time. I taught them what I call walking thoughts, is when you get the aha or the takeaway from the podcast, write that down or in your phone. That becomes your prompt to do your 200 words, right? So most times, like, people follow me in my LinkedIn post, or some aha I got from some podcast show that I'm really trying to wrap my head around and dive into further. So now I'm thinking, coming from the perspective, okay, cool. How do I teach this concept to others so I can really learn the damn thing? And then I go right straight into my freaking 30 minutes of reach out to my 30 minutes of hand raising activities. 90 days, no quit.
That's sweet. I'm going to do that.
That's
That
awesome.
sounds like I'm going to do that. That's going to be a fun. I like that. Because I actually had that, because I like the 75 hard from the physical component, but I'm like the business. Now this is what let's do them together.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have done 75 hard and, champions 90s, side by side. 75 hards is a tough bitch to do, because taking the pictures, the no alcohol, the diets and all that. I'll let Andy keep all that stuff. I have no desire to be that side of it. I put the walking in because I have ADHD and, I need to listen to podcasts. And the best way for me to listen to podcasts is I got to be distracted. So having the podcast allows me to be distracted enough that the walks are easy to do. They don't bother me. It's like yelling cadence when you're running in the military,
That's awesome. Well, we've talked about amazing things today, and definitely didn't know it was going to go this long, but it was like well worth it because there was a lot of nuggets dropped in here. So we got, what was it? champions90.com.
Yep.
And then what other website, or where do you want to send people to?
So if people will text the word success to 817-318-6030, we send over a free video with a bunch of trainings on referrals, introductions, and the like. It's all free. We're not trying to sell anything. So just text the word success to 817-318-6030, and we'll send that right over to you. But guys, do me a favor for Beau. If you hung around with us for this damn long and you got any value out of this, any tips, any tricks, do him the honor of sharing this out with somebody. Man, I tell you, having my own show, growing your audience is the toughest thing in the world. So if you'll share this with one person, man, it'll mean the whole damn world to him. So help him out. Thank
you. Appreciate it. This was a great episode. God, I always get fired up, and this was no exception. I think this one is going to kind of, the Champion 90 is going to be, I'm going to start that right away. I'm going to go check that out. Definitely right up my alley. I like doing these contests, these internal contests. I like working towards something. I like competition. I don't mind losing either. And so, not that I'm going to lose this, but I'm just saying, like in wrestling or jujitsu, when I used to train jujitsu, I didn't want to tap, but sometimes you have to tap because somebody's a little bit better than you. But the point is that you get back on the mat and you keep on going. But like these kind of things are great because like you really can't lose if you just do it.
Yep. That's it, man. So, and the greatest competition is the one against ourselves. So if you can't compete with yourself, then life's going to be really hard for a really long time.
Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.